Uh, but comics just keep like ignoring the youth, except DC. And I want to say something about this. I know it's not even one of our stories, but DC's got these 2 new imprints they're doing. One's called Ink, although it looks sort of like it says Oink. And I forget what the other one is. Dink, maybe. I don't know. One is for younger kids, and then one is for kind of like tweens on up. But they've got 2 new imprints of comic books that are pitched towards younger readers. And I am so proud of DC for this.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've been begging for years. I know I talked about it on a comic show that we used to do that we don't do that anymore. I had a kid who came in, well, a mom came in for her son. Her son loved Wonder Woman. This is before the Wonder Woman movie was out. There was the Wonder Woman cartoon that movie that Kerry Russell was in. And he had seen that and he loved it. And she's like, I want to find him Wonder Woman comics. And this is this golden opportunity to get this kid who's not read comics before into this whole thing. And there were no comics that were age appropriate for this kid. And I just felt so terrible about that. Of all characters, there should be a Wonder Woman comic that's all ages. And for the last few years, I've struggled with that fact. Like that particular moment really opened my eyes above so much other stuff. Thank you, Beat. It's DC Ink and DC Zoom. I didn't understand, and I really want to see that corrected because, man, even if I still had disposable income, and I don't. You were talking about your new furniture in your room. My room here is filled with firewood and accelerants, and hope. Like the complete abandonment of giving a shit anymore, and just like strike me, Lord, strike me down. But like if I still had the income to buy comics, I can only go so far, and I am literally a Doritos Locust Taco away from death at any given moment. I'm just going to keel over, and then who's going to buy your shitty ass Avengers book, Mark Waid? Like nobody, because you haven't made it available to the next generation. You haven't enticed them in. Part of it's cost, but part of it is just because it's this bullshit like fucking wall up of you're not who we care about. You know, well, maybe you fucking should. Maybe you open up a little bit more. And I think it's weird that a company that is owned by Disney, that has built their entire fucking business for the last 10 years about trying to appeal to adolescent boys because they could only ever feel like they were appealing to adolescent girls. Again, I watched a shit ton of Disney movies growing up. I never felt like I was being gender miscategorized or something. I was just like, this is a good fucking movie. I like these cartoons. The Hercules was fucking cool. Like, if you have these fucking Marvel comics, why can you not make them age appropriate for the audience that you claim that you want? It's weird. It's a little dumb. So DC's putting their fucking money where their mouth is. Now they're doing a lot of other imprints. They're doing Brian Bendis bullshit. Not technically bullshit. I'm just saying bullshit because I don't know what it fucking is yet. They've got the Young Animal stuff. They've got this shit rolling out from Metal. That heroes from Marvel that we put a DC mask on. All that stuff. That's all well and good, but it is more of the same. Like Young Animal's a weirder imprint, but it's kind of like a cool modern Vertigo with DC mainstream universe shit. But this is different, and DC's tried stuff like this before. They did the Minx line years ago, and Marvel tried it with Tsunami, but Tsunami, while it had Runaways and Sentinel, did also have like more adult books that were based around Venom and Mystique and Emma Frost. And Emma Frost was just like low cut everything on every cover by Greg Land because that's all he knows how to draw because he only watches porn.
Well, here's so on this too, and we might as well just make it the first news story because I'm trying to transition into news, but it's really hard and all that. But the other part with this, with both Ink and Zoom, is they're not traditional comic books. They are graphic novels.
Right. Which is another huge move.
They're doing the European version where they do more of the collections, you know, it's more of the graphic novel stuff, original graphic novels, than the single floppy issues. But so here's the from and this is, we have links in their show notes. The titles from the and creators for DC Inc., which is the young adult line. You have Batman Gotham High, which they could have just honestly done Gotham Academy, in my opinion, on there, done by Melissa Dela Cruz. She did Alex and Eliza, Blue Blood series, Witches of East End series, Batman Nightcrawler, or Nightwalker, the graphic novel, done by Mary Lou, which I think she might have written the book that this is based off of. Teen Titans, done by Cami Garcia. Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale, done by Lauren Miracle, and then Wonder Woman Tempest Tossed by Lori Hulse Anderson. The other part of that you can point out, all those women all them that I just mentioned are, as far as I know, women. I mean, as like from looking at this, I'm like, it sounds like women and all that, which is really cool. The Zoom are they say more middle school focused, but you got Batman Tales, Once Upon a Crime. Writer and artist is Derek Fidroffs, and then Dustin Nguyen. Ooh, oh god,
Dustin Nguyen.
They got me with that one, son of a bitch. Batman Overdrive by Shea Fontana, who's done the DC Superhero Girls series. Canary Ignite, Dear Justice, or done by Meg Cabot. Dear Justice League, done by Michael Northrop. Green Lantern Legacy, done by Min Lee. Super Sons, done by Ridley Pearson. Superman of Smallville, writer, and there we go. I was going to ask you, where's the art and Frank, or the Franco and Baltazar one? And Superman of Smallville, writer and artist Art Baltazar and Franco, who did Tiny Titans. And then Superman Smashes the Klan, done by Gene Yang, Avatar Last Airbender series, New Superman, released as periodical. So this is going to be the one that's traditional comic book done, from what it sounds like. But yeah, so I mean, this honestly sounds really cool with how this could very well be going about.
Yeah, Marvel, when they involved a bunch of I don't want to just emphasize that they're female creators, but that was kind of what they were bringing in. They also brought in female creators who had very specific styles to work on a bunch of their books, and it was something that was over a few years. But I remember seeing it in a Hellcat book, and then kind of built up from there. When we got things like Gwenpool and the Squirrel Girl series and a bunch of other things. And now a lot of the backlash from traditional Marvel fans was that they didn't like this stuff being mixed in with their hardcore Marvel superheroes as they knew them. And that was also at the same time that we were seeing a lot of characters get replaced. I don't want to give too much agreement to what they were saying, because the reaction is just dumb. If you already weren't reading a Gwenpool comic, there was nothing forcing you to read a Gwenpool comic. Yes, the character was in continuity with the other characters and stuff, but you could still just kind of mostly ignore what was going on over in this other section. But because it bled into their world, and because Cap's a Nazi, which is, let's face it, fucking dumb, then they just felt like, oh, well, Marvel doesn't understand or care about its original fans, and these new fans aren't going to keep them afloat. And so you get some Marvel executives saying, yeah, the backlash was to all of our social justice warrior shit, which is not remotely true. But for some people it was. It gave them validation that I don't think was deserved. So what I like about DC Inc. is that it's taking a lot of maybe similar types of creators, but it's giving them an imprint, and it's also making it aimed at an audience who would probably enjoy that type of work more. Instead of sticking a Gwenpool in the midst of a universe that's built, like I said earlier, for fucking 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds who've been reading comics for 30 or 40 years. It's aimed at new readers, young readers, people who have different aesthetics, people who've been watching things like Adventure Time and Teen Titans Go and all the other stuff on Cartoon Network and are looking for that next thing to go on to. It's applying it to the right audience. And that's where I think the breakdown is that Marvel made some very good books and had some very, very good creators making those books. But the audience that they were trying to build did not have a very inviting experience coming into the mainstream Marvel universe and dealing with the other mainstream Marvel fans, which again, a select group of Marvel fans, not all Marvel fans.
Yeah. So the other part here to point out is because there's two articles that I'm jumping back and forth between, both of them from Newsarama. The other one is talking more about Superman smashes the Klan, which is they're guessing, because we're not going to know anything because they're not going to be released until fall, but they're guessing it relates to the real story of Superman, the Superman radio show raising awareness and opposition to the Ku Klux Klan in the 1940s. And this is written by Jean Luen Liang, who's doing Justice League of China and the new Superman books right now. The other cool part about this is DC Zoom, which is the middle school geared books, will feature soft covers and will cost $9.99 for 128 pages.
Right, a really good entry point price to get in that new reader. Again, it's not like it's not costly. It's still $10 for a book for a generation that a lot of people claim don't read, but it's the right price to get people. You hand that to your parents if it's in a place where parents are going to see it with their kids. Yes. That's the other thing, is it's got to be marketed more than just mainstream comic stores. Although I love my local comic shops all over the world. If you don't have that audience already coming into your shop, there's no way to get this product in their hands.
True.
So it kind of makes sense that you got to get this product in a place where those customers already are. Well, when I was a kid, it was 7-Eleven, you know, but or drugstores and stuff. I don't think kids are going into those places that much anymore. So where would you find them?
So hold on, let me ask you this, because on the other side, DC Inked, which is the what's more high schooler focused line, there, as they say, young adults. Those ones are going to be 120 or 192 pages for $16.99. So that sounds about the traditional graphic novel price right now. And page size, you get those a lot at Barnes and Nobles, don't you?
Right.
Like at Barnes and Noble, and then because they're not published.
What is this Barnes and Noble? Is this some sort of knighthood? I don't understand.
You also get them, and if you go in that route, I will flip you off. You also get them at Target, where
now see that's what I was going for. Yeah. Is that Target is a place where parents shop at Target. They often bring their kids with them to Target, and Target has things for both adults and kids. If you can get them in their hands there, if you can get the kids to say, "Hey, I want this book," and it's instead of the noise making thing over here, then that's a very good possibility. A Target, a Walmart, a Meijer.
No, hold on. Let me ask you this, because this is where I was leading to with it. Because I know Barnes and Noble has them. My Target that I work at, since we are a smaller Target, right now we have them in the back. We have the first volumes of a few of the Rebirth titles, but then the one that's prominently placed on the shelf, and I fucking hate it, is Killing Joke. We have Killing Joke is in the book section and all that stuff, but it's shrink. It's got the plastic wrap on it, so the kids can't just sit there and flip through it.
Because that always stops a kid who's sitting there in an aisle with their parents are like, "Look, I need to go buy some fucking milk, and when you're not looking, my cigarette. So can you just sit here and read?"
Target doesn't sell cigarettes, by the way.
I know they don't. That's what I'm saying. Is the parents leave? Can you just sit here and read and give mommy a fucking break for 10 minutes? And then the kid's like, sure, I can read. Oh, what's this thing over here that's all wrapped up like I'm not supposed to see it? I desperately need to see it now. Fortunately, plastic is very easy to get through.
Okay. I hate to poke holes in your analogy here, but
no, they're poking holes through the fucking cover of the
no, not the kids, because at least in my Target and the Targets that I've been in, there's this section that's right next to where the books and movies are at.
Tell me it's the restrooms.
No, that's at the other end of the store. But I get plenty of people asking. But it's called the electronics department, where they have all the Bluetooth speakers that you can sit there and press a button and you can hear, 30 seconds of an Ed Sheeran song, or I don't even know who the hell. This is where I break out the old man, because I don't have half the clue of what the songs are playing on there. Or then they go a little further and there's a Nintendo Switch Live demo. So why would they go to those books and read and expand their imagination when they can go over here and just push all the buttons and piss off the people who are in the electronics department?
Well, because it depends on the person. Certainly I like electronics, and I liked electronics as a kid, but I also loved reading. I loved comics. You're going to find the person who is like, I'm here to start shit, or there's the other kid who's like, I'm here because I'm stuck here, but oh, cool, I like to read, I want to pick this thing up. You can't sell something to somebody who doesn't want it. But it's putting it there for the audience and making it for the audience, and not fucking putting mature reader shit where kids should be.
Well, it's okay. So with how it's set up, it is on a top shelf, but whatever. That's not the point I was trying to make.
Top shelf is a completely different publisher. I think you got that wrong.
Yeah. Okay. What I was trying to ask is, are graphic novels published through Diamond, or is it a different?
Distributed through Diamond, you mean?
Are they distributed through Diamond? Yeah.
Odds are that they will be distributed through Diamond. It doesn't mean that Diamond has to be the only distributor, but it sounds like they already have distribution set up if they're getting other DC material in the stores now. What happened to the newsstand market is that newsstands used to be the very popular distribution. That was kind of like everybody would have comics. That's why my 7-Eleven had them. That's why your drugstores, Safeways, all that stuff would have them. The party stores all had the spinner rack, and it wasn't like an exact thing. Like I would go in, and sometimes a title would just not show up one month, and I'd be like, well, but where's my X-Men? And I have to go and search for it in another couple stores, because it wasn't like a collector's market; it was a reader's market. But the thing with newsstand distribution, one, the paper was very cheap, but all comics were at that point. We didn't get to prestige comics until later on. It was disposable income stuff. Like when I was buying comics as a kid, they were 35 cents. And then they very quickly went up. But newsstand distributors were kind of like booksellers in that when you hit the end of life, you could return the product. But you didn't return the whole product. You tore off the cover and sent the cover back in to get credit. And then you were supposed to destroy the comics that you had. It was supposed to save you on the shipping as the small store versus the distributorship. But it was a loss for these companies. Like, oh yeah, we sent out 1.5 million comics, but we got back 500,000 covers. So that means they didn't sell. And so we have to refund that money for them. In which cases, a lot of times they would still, like, you go into a secondhand shop and find all the comics without the front covers on them, sold at a complete discount, but it still meant that someone made money along the way that they shouldn't have. And bookstores did that too. So with the distribution system for comic shops through Diamond, Capital City was another one. There were a few, Heroes World. They didn't have that returnability. And so it became, you had to order the stuff for your store and be pretty accurate on what you were getting, that it was going to sell through. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with product. Now, at the point in time when comics kept going up and up and up in price for them being out for a while, the collectability market, that was fine. It's like, oh, I can't sell X-Men 163, all the copies I got right now, But in 2 years, suddenly X-Men 163 is worth $5 as opposed to the 80 cents that it was when I got it at cover price. Like, people spend more for it now, and they'll get the bag and board, and the collector's market made it work. When the collector's market crashed, distribution had already changed because we got rid of all the competition for distribution. So Diamond didn't give a shit. And the retailer's just like, well, like, I can't sell these 1,000 copies of Spawn #1 that I have. They're just sitting here in fucking boxes, taking up space. So they cost me in both, like, the room that I have to bring in other comics, and I put money into them that they're fucking worthless. Yeah, that's exactly it. And so it put all the onus on the retailer.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong, because the returnability, that's a big cost to companies like Marvel that used to sell 1 million issues of a comic and now are lucky to sell in the 20 or 30,000 of a comic. But it is when it comes to this new stuff, if they're going to try to go for a different market, a different audience, the rules are going to have to be looked at. They're going to have to be a little bit more flexible, I think. Also, the big thing of this is that I think all of these things have to come out digitally at the same time. These graphic novels are going to have to come out as a digital brand, because that's where you're going to get more eyeballs in it, as long as they know to look for it. It's still my problem with digital is that who's advertising this stuff? Like, how are you selling to people who have no idea to go look for these comics online?
No, yeah, definitely. And I posted in there because, I just did a search for comics on Target.com. There's a lot in there, like enough. And I was hoping that one of them, if I clicked on there, it would say the vendor, because that's one of the things that I can look at when I scan an item. Which, if I happen to see a book, I might actually do it, because I think it might be through another book, like a separate book vendor who sends us all of our books, and not just like just comic books or anything like that. But it's, I don't know, it's weird. I love this idea because, and I honestly, I wish Marvel would do the same thing.
And Marvel may, but Marvel's under new leadership right now.
Yeah,
they've got a new editor-in-chief person in place. A lot of changes are just now starting to leak out, and I believe that is something that they will probably be looking at, and I believe also that it's something that Disney is going to expect them to look at, and that may be why the editor-in-chief that was there for the last 10 years is not there anymore.
Yeah,
it's because they need to make these changes, and that wasn't the right person to go with this new direction.
Yeah. Now, real quick, and I do mean real quick, because this is a perfect segue to our other two stories that we got here. Because Disney actually still has licensed out their other characters to IDW and a few other publishers. Do you think that this is something that they would, that once they would almost do a test like the DC, like the Marvel equivalent of DC Zoom and DC Inc., where it's just the Marvel characters before they then go, okay, the Disney comics are coming back to Marvel?
Since they're just now announcing some of the Disney characters that they're licensing out to people, I just don't know that Marvel has the talent to focus on these types of books right now. They haven't harvested that kind of talent, whereas other companies have the ability to do that. If you look at a Boom, you look at the books that Boom's putting out, they are the right kind of people to do those kinds of books. They were doing them before, and that's kind of what led to them getting to the other stuff they're doing now. Dark Horse is a little more interesting because I haven't seen that kind of stuff come out from Dark Horse other than Little Hellboy by Art and Franco. But again, because Dark Horse is a smaller company that can focus in on things a little bit better, and because they're a great company to work for, I've heard so many creators love working for Dark Horse over time, they can put in on it. Marvel's struggles right now are making Marvel comics sell.
Yeah.
I think that is the right move for them, is to understand what's been going wrong in their sales, and how to course correct, because they do have incredibly popular characters. 15 years ago, I wouldn't have said that I would be too worried that Iron Man wasn't a number one selling book, that Captain America or Avengers weren't number one selling books. But now, with 10 years of these films and the popularity and the name recognition, why are those titles struggling so badly? Yeah. Why are X-Men titles struggling so badly when X-Men was the biggest cash cow, not just at Marvel, but anywhere, for 20-something years? To see this happening, there is a lot fundamentally wrong with Marvel's creative output currently. And I don't say that to piss on any creators. It's just that the directions that the whole company has chosen to go in for their publishing seems to have landed them in a tough spot. One that I'm sure that they can get back from, but that's where they need to concentrate on. So I think licensing these things out instead of trying to create a new section of Marvel to do them, that's just spreading themselves too thin at this point in time. Maybe someday, but I agree with you. Those properties need to exist, because it's just leaving money on the table, and it's leaving properties to stagnate so that they go out of the public eye, and you have to fight to get them to come back and be relevant again. One thing that I know a lot of people aren't happy with the new direction of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon that they've announced, with all the turtles being different types of turtles, and animation is very different. But TMNT has reinvented itself every couple of years since it got its first cartoon, since it's got its first movie. Once it hit the mainstream, it did everything it could to keep in the mainstream in one form or another. Staying in the public eye is huge. It may not always be the most popular. It may go through phases where it disappears for a year or two, but then they come back and they do some Bay-esque shit films. But people saw them. They may not have loved them. They may not have been as popular as they expected, but they got a sequel. Those things, they've been announcing all week that the first movie is going to be on Nickelodeon tonight. It's a special Nickelodeon event. Like, I don't know how fucking special it is. It's from 5 years ago and nobody wanted to see it then, but sure, you go, Nick. But people still are talking about TMNT in one way or another, or recognize the property. You compare that to a Darkwing Duck or a Rescue Rangers, or even a Muppets. The Muppets tried to give it another go in the last couple of years. They had the one movie come out, and then they had the sequel come out, and I didn't hear much about the sequel. And they had the TV show, and the TV show didn't quite work. Again, maybe because they aimed it towards adults more than they did kids. I feel like Muppets is one of those things like Warner Brothers cartoons, where it needs to walk the line and be for both. You just have to know how to handle that kind of writing. TMNT, I think, has managed to maintain a semblance of recognition that Disney and Marvel could learn from. You have to kind of look at giving these properties the best opportunities that you can. And sometimes you say in-house is the best place for this. And sometimes you say in-house is definitely the wrong place for this. And you lend it out to someplace else. I feel like if I'm at a power level of Disney, my thought process would be do this in-house as much as possible, because we keep control. Mm-hmm. Relinquishing control is tough because someone else might not give things the same care. They might make decisions that you always have to look over their shoulders. And if I'm looking over your shoulders all the goddamn time, one, I'm splitting off the profits to share with you. And two, I'm doing the work sort of anyways, because I always have to look at your work. At the same time, though, like, I really need my focus over here right now. So can you just fucking juggle this for a little while for me? Just keep people talking about it. Like, maybe not loudly, but just knowing that it's still there, that we still give a fuck about these properties, so that when I'm stable on this side and I can deal with that over there, I can come back and either nudge you in the direction that I want you, or just pick it up and take it back over here because I'm ready for it, and make it right. It's the other thing with the Marvel stuff in particular is that we got really spoiled with the shared universe. And so you want all the stuff to be shared universe, and that may be the right direction, maybe the wrong direction. But it's hard to argue with the results that Marvel films have had versus Marvel at other companies.
To get to the articles, the other two articles that I want to mention here, Disney has unveiled their streaming service launch slate. Now, here's the interesting part. I think a lot of this is going to bank on the Disney Fox merger, because with what they're talking about doing 5 to 7 original movies or original products a year on there. The Netflix shows, so Daredevil, all the Defenders stuff and Punisher stays over there. Everything that's rated R will go to Hulu and all that, because they still get money out of that.
Is Hulu doing a lot of R-rated content right now?
Hulu has the movies. They have R-rated movies on there and all that. So I mean, it's
I since I don't subscribe to Hulu, I still see Hulu as the landing spot for TV shows that were from regular TV stations and stuff. They just go over to Hulu, and then shows that feel like they kind of also could be on regular TV. So I haven't seen Hulu in this kind of more mature material yet. But if you say so, then absolutely that makes more sense than
not to correct. First one that I found, a movie from earlier this year called The Hero, starring Sam Elliott as as an aging actor confronting mortality and the hero, a beautifully poignant celebration of life and the legacies we leave behind. Also starring Laura Prepon, and all that. That's right there on the Hulu's homepage. That was the first R-rated movie that I've seen on here.
Okay.
And not so. I mean, it's not like it's out of it, because I mean they have a bunch of movies on here. The other thing I would see them doing is on the Disney side is theoretically pulling movies or focusing them more on their streaming service, because on here it's just under the list of popular movies. You got George of the Jungle, Disney's The Black Cauldron, First Kid. I wanted to say that princess movie was one, but it's not like a Disney movie. Where it's like there's a few movies here that could be pulled. Disney's The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Disney's Air Bud, all these can be pulled onto their streaming service. The other side of this, though, on the flip, is because they're already talking about working on some projects for here. One of which is a Star Wars live action TV series done by David Benioff and DB Weiss, who are the creators of and showrunners of Game of Thrones. Well, not creators of the franchise, showrunners of Game of Thrones. And the article said who they were teaming with, and it was another big monster get with that as well.
If it's from the showrunners of Game of Thrones, is this the story of if slavery was never made illegal in the Star Wars universe?
No,
because wasn't that the next thing that they were working on for HBO? Is
yes.
this alternate history?
Yes, like the article says, their final season of Game of Thrones is set to air in 2019, and while Benioff and Weiss planned to move on to their alternate history show Confederate, it wouldn't be surprised if the controversy put the project down for the count and opened the doors to a Star Wars trilogy. I look at this honestly as this is smart planning, smart thinking, because I mean Disney has a lot of stuff that they could be doing for original movies, and hopefully bring up the quality that you get from the Disney Channel original movies. Now, keep in mind, I grew up on the Disney Channel original movies. Xenon Girl, what I think was Girl of the 21st Century or 22nd Century, Xenon the sequel, going so far back.
You can say Cheetah Girls, we know.
Well, no, Cheetah Girls came a little bit later. I'm talking about the older stuff. Brink, which was, that was my jam. Smart House. But now you get into like Cheetah Girls sort of started it with, and then High School Musical really kicked it off with the being more musical focused. And this is where it seemed to me like they skewed a little bit more girl centric than for everyone. Because even the new movie they have, it's called Zombies, that's coming out this year. Interesting take on the whole zombie thing. Basically, it's like a chemical reaction thing happened, and now all the zombies wear these bands that are that shock them if they start thinking about brains, and it makes them not want to eat brains and all that stuff. And then it's a little bit West Side Story and stuff like that.
So it's zombie conversion therapy?
Not exactly.
Are you going to pray the dead away? I mean, it's just
no.
Like, there's a way to go with this story that could be really, really fun to explore.
Yeah. But I mean, in all honesty, though, I mean, with this developing, with this stuff here, it sounds like they do have a plan for what a lot of people were worried about when it comes to the, how things are going to be working. Because of the fact that they would then if again hitting back on the Fox merger thing, if they do this, they now own 60% I think of Fox, or not Fox, of Hulu, and so it's like it's basically saying, hey, we're not going to just be like, this is our service now, you guys get out, or up the price. It's going to be, we're still going to put content on here, and it's going to be content that the parents are going to want to watch, or the college kids are going to want to watch more, rather than the the kids, or the like the middle schoolers and high schoolers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and absolutely. If you're a company that isn't Disney owned, but you've got content on Hulu, say like NBC or ABC or whatever. Well, ABC is Disney. Sorry, CBS or whoever. And you're part of Hulu already, having shows like a Star Wars live action series is good for you, because it means people are going to subscribe to that service and then have the ability to discover your stuff. What's that?
That's not going to be on Hulu.
Well, here's my problem already. Yeah. If you're going with the creators of Game of Thrones and you're pitching it as these are the guys who do Game of Thrones,
yeah,
do you think that's going to go on the Disney side, or is that going to go on the Hulu side? And here's my other issue before we go too far. This is my second part of it, which is what I have always wanted from Star Wars, after the original trilogy, has been an expanded universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got the prequels, I was disappointed because it was still the Skywalker shit. And with the new trilogy, I don't need it to be the original characters anymore. I'm more interested in the new characters. But we're getting stuff like the prequel to Episode 4 with Rogue One. We're getting the Han Solo movie that apparently nobody thinks Disney actually wants us to see. But for me, I want more of the Star Wars universe to explore. But what I don't necessarily want is a different tone. I liked the original trilogy's tone. I liked what that felt like, and it was appealing to me as a kid, and it appeals to me as an adult. So the idea of and I'm not saying this is actually what they're doing, because just because you do one show and you do it really well doesn't mean that's the only thing you're capable of. But I don't want a Game of Thrones Star Wars, as a for instance. And again, I'm not saying that's what they're planning to do. That's like saying the guy who made Pushing Daisies can only ever make more Pushing Daisies and can't do things like American Gods or Hannibal or whatever.
here's
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and here's sort of going to be the counter to it. Because this is from the article that Bob Iger, because this was during a conference call, he stated that he offered some updates on the new project from them, explaining that Lucasfilm has been in talks with the filmmakers for some time, and despite their credentials as creators of one of the most successful TV shows of all time, they never had an interest in creating a Star Wars TV series for the platform. No, they're focused on a point in time. This is a quote from him, on a point in time in the Star Wars mythology. So, what a lot of people have been hearing about, and is something that would work for the more family friendly app, the streaming service side of things, and not necessarily the have to go the R-rated, oh, let's throw this on Hulu, would be a Knights of the Old Republic. You still have the you still have all the action and the fighting and stuff, but it's not going to be Deadpool, or not Deadpool, Daredevil or Punisher, levels of violence in there, or even Game of Thrones level of violence, because I mean they've basically proved that they can do this type of story here. They just happen to put it in, nudity and a lot of swearing and stuff, and it's called Game of Thrones.
I mean, and honestly, that it seems like anytime a show shows up on a cable premium channel like HBO or Showtime or Stars, it's almost an automatic of they have to have that stuff for some reason. Every show, it's like, and here's your first sex scene of these actors. It's just so edgy. I don't understand why that's all the programs is like. Well, it's on HBO, so boobs away. And I don't abhor it. Of course, it's just it seems like that's all that's ever done to separate it from being on regular TV. And then they fucking sell reruns of Sopranos to regular TV, and they have to hack the shit out of it. My point of the Star Wars thing was, again, that they're not incapable of making a show that can be more all age, or at least PG instead of R-rated. But what I was also going to say is that between Star Wars, and especially with the Marvel stuff, is that if I'm the Marvel watcher, which I sort of am, do I want to now have to go through two different services to get all of my Marvel content? With cable, I have kids channels. I have, not all age channels, but channels that have content for different age groups. And then I have channels that lean more towards mature content. When the kids are up, they can throw on Snick, Nickelodeon, Toon Disney, Cartoon Network, all that stuff. But even Cartoon Network gets to the point of day where they go from being the kids' cartoons to Adult Swim. When the kids are at school, I can watch my fucking Ellen and General Hospital and stuff. When they come back home, we put on content that's for both of us. The reruns of Big Bang Theory that aren't too fucking racy, or Simpsons or Bob's Burgers or whatever. And then when they go to bed, that's when I can flip over to FX and put on stuff that is more for me, and they can watch it on their tablets. In this imaginary scenario where I have kids and they aren't little fuckers who are pirating off the neighbor's Wi-Fi and watching porn themselves like I would have done when I was their age. We raise them just like ourselves, man. It's just a fucking test of your patience to what your parents had to go through.
Yeah. My mom had to go through.
Right.
Much like us. Yeah. I'm not. But no, anyways, I was going to say, are you sure this is you with hypothetical kids and not Aaron possessing you, saying how you are? Dude, and all that.
The amount of shit that I walk into my wife watching and just like, I have relegated myself to the other room many a time because I'm just like not in the mood to watch your fucking Human Centipede one more goddamn time, or anything by Stanley Kubrick.
You just substitute Ellen with Human Centipede.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is do Human Centipede with the Muppets, and there's just a guy with one long arm. my point is that why are these services treated like they're single stations as opposed to doing something like what YouTube does, where it brings a bunch of stations in, or PlayStation, or all these things that are like the new cable? Why isn't Disney like giving you a kids channel, a family time channel, a mature channel, and all that stuff? If they've got all this content, so that I can pay the $30 a month to get everything, as opposed to piddly shitting out for one service or another. That is where I think this stuff would wind up going. Because again, if I'm Disney and I own all of these different things, doesn't it behoove me to have them be under one umbrella? Doesn't it make sense to me to have me control it and not have to share it with the other 40% that it gets Hulu or the Netflix or whatever? That's my question. Now, I don't think that's immediate, but I think long term, that's probably where things would go. Is that in the future, every restaurant is Taco Bell, and they still can't make a fucking Doritos Locos taco that doesn't break apart before you even get bites out of it.
Now, here's my answer to that.
Is it shitting with 3 seashells? Because I still don't know how that works.
They already have those, that whole thing. It's called cable.
But they don't own the cable company yet.
They don't. But do they need to own the cable company? Because but because they get the money from all these, because you're talking about it's not too much more, because it's skews in the young adults area, but Freeform, that's the older kids, that's the that in there. A&E, they have stake in. You got your Disney Channel, your Disney XD, Disney Junior for the kids.
But in the cable company, you still don't get all of the control or all of the benefits, all of the profits. So when they're already leaning into taking some of our balls, not all of our, I'm not taking my ball and going home, but you're going to play in the field with the not nice new equipment. And over here, we're going to have the good this is the rich neighborhood ball field. And over there, that's the wrong side of the tracks, pretty in pink side of the neighborhood.
So hold on. That was the first part of why they're not going, just putting everything in Hulu and all that. The other part is they're not trying to compete with cable. They're trying to compete. They're trying to compete with Netflix. This whole streaming service is not a thing for, we're going to be the cable replacement, like Hulu with their live TV is, or Sling TV, or PlayStation View, or DirecTV Now, or anything like that. It's
but anytime a company says that we're not competing with this thing over here, it's not because they're not going to compete with that thing over there. It's that at this point in time, we're taking down this motherfucker. But all you other motherfuckers better recognize, when this shit is done, you bitches better worship the ground that I walk in. Fucking show enough, the Shogun of Harlem, I am going to kick your ass. Kiss my Converse, motherfucker. That is the point. Is if they can take down a Netflix, because right now Netflix is the brand. Netflix is the name. That is the thing that everybody else is kind of pissing themselves and trying to rise up to meet. Yeah. If Disney competes with Netflix and can beat them at this game, at this very new game, then the next thing will be, well, why would we want to deal with Comcast and DirecTV and competitors? Because all of those things are competitors. Comcast owns content. Comcast isn't just a way to get content to you. Comcast makes content to get people to stay there. Now, some of their content, again, goes to Hulu, goes to other places and stuff. But realistically, Comcast would love to just get all your shit from Comcast. And eventually, if that worked, if they got used to everybody getting all their shit from Comcast, then they would say, now you're just going to get Comcast shit. It's like when you go into the grocery store and they've got the name brands and they've got the grocery store brands. And it's like, yeah, I like my brand, but if I can save 50 cents to $1 to a couple of bucks with the store brand and it's almost as good, then I just buy the store brand. And then eventually the big name brand goes away because the store brand is good enough. And then you're just fucking part of the whole system of like the Meijer or the Safeway, the Walmart. It's like you're just in. And so you don't have a competitor. At some point, like we talk about Apple buying a telephone service, or Google buying like T-Mobile or something, or Apple buying Netflix, or Disney buying Apple. Like at some point, it gets to be the point of like, why do I want to deal with other people's crap? Why can't I just do all this myself? And when you have these giant corporations, it gets more and more likely that they can do that. Yeah. You know, if Disney decides, hey, we can buy our a Comcast, we can buy them, and then we can give people broadband, a pipe that goes right to us, and we don't have to worry about net neutrality. You know, or you're Amazon, and you're like, I'm going to create our own company's healthcare system for our employees, so we don't have to deal with whether or not the healthcare system for the rest of the country does what it's supposed to. You work for us, you get the healthcare that we provide, and we meet your needs, so people will want to work here. And we don't have to deal with government regulation. We don't have to deal with overpriced pills because we can negotiate. That's the thing, is that when it goes down the line, you always got to look at what the end game is. Now, it's a long time away, and a lot of things can happen in between here and there, you know, and Solo could bomb, and then Disney could do another fucking John Carter of Mars movie, and just for laughs. There's a lot of things that could break this. Yeah. But I do think that when I look at what the end user wants is just access to the content. Mm-hmm. You know, the easiest, preferably cheapest, but best experience that they can get. You know, give me the greatest amount of content for the most reasonable amount of money, and I'll be happy to continue being a customer. You know, the reason why cable and all these things are struggling now is because they gave us shit for a long time, stuff that we didn't want, that we had to pay for, and the stuff that we wanted, we had to fight for or pay extra for. It was just kind of like, it was a broken system based from the consumer end. When you get rid of that middleman, because Disney just wants people to be in the Disney house, just watch our shit, buy our shit, go to our shit parks, you know, take a shit in our shit parks. We've got a robot that will come and clean it up, and it looks just like it came out of fucking Toy Story. Have fun, man. Like, love us, love me. Then all of those middlemen become less and less ideal to work with, you know. And I think that when it's like, oh, well, I already am not digging the experience, that to see episodes of Justified, I have to get an Amazon Prime subscription. Or if I want to see this Future Man show, I have to get a Hulu subscription. And if I want to keep watching my Jessica Jones series, I have to have a Netflix subscription. I'm already chasing content that way. And while I'm accepting of it right now, at some point it's going to go overboard. Like, I'm no fucking way can I see a moment this year where I'm getting a CBS membership, because Star Trek Discovery didn't do it for me, and I haven't heard fuck all about what the follow-up is after Star Trek Discovery to make me feel enticed to look at their service to begin with. You know, it's like, you put a lot of eggs in this Star Trek Discovery basket, and for me it didn't work, but you haven't then said, by the way, here's the next thing. Here's the thing that's like, that was really compelling for some people, and yeah, maybe didn't fly for everybody, but here's what's up next. They haven't said it yet. That's worrisome. Mm-hmm. It's like the Sony PlayStation thing with Powers. It's like, oh, Powers, that's really interesting. What comes next? Hopefully more Powers someday, maybe. Nope, didn't happen. Nope, good luck. Sorry. You can go from a like talked about buzz thing to nothing really quick. If people are already in the Hulu sphere, that's great. That's perfectly cool for Disney. If people are like, oh, and then I want to check out this Disney thing over here too, but then it becomes like, well, do I need 2 subscriptions? And I want to keep Netflix because Netflix has the other or Marvel stuff that I like as well, the shows that I'm already watching and I'm into. So that's now 3 things that I have to jump around hoops for. It's like at some point it makes sense to say no more hoops. They don't have to have them, so why would they? That's what I feel. The Star Trek thing or the Star Wars thing. I mean, back to that. What I was saying about I like the tone of the original Star Wars movies, and I want more of that tone, but in an expanded universe. That's the same sort of deal. As if they do Star Wars stuff, if they ever do Star Wars stuff that is adult themed, that's probably not for me. Much in the way that Beat talks about Star Trek Discovery, is that it doesn't feel like Star Trek to him. And I get where he's coming from with it. I haven't watched it beyond the first half of the first episode or whatever. But I'm just like, that's not what I want tonally from Star Trek. But I can see something coming out that's like Star Trek that is that tone, and it would be much more appealing to me because I don't have this thing in my head of what Star Trek is to kind of like get in my way of it. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I look at this like where, yeah, okay, we need to be aware of their end game. End games change. There was a time when Marvel was going to release Inhumans as a movie. Their end game was to include the Inhumans, in one of the Avengers movies. With Infinity War was going to be a 2-part movie. Those things change. End games change. That's where I honestly look at this. I don't look at this as them eventually going and competing with cable companies, because I think part of their end game is the cable companies are going to die out. It's all going to go to streaming.
Well, yeah, but the cable companies right now are still in charge of how you get that content. And that's what I mean, is not dealing with cable companies for like, oh, your cable TV is going to air our shows. I mean, hey, Comcast, we're going to buy out your broadband.
Yeah. No, yeah. And this is, if we can get Ajit Pai listening to this would be amazing. But this is where I honest to God feel like it's more of a thing of we need to get the pipes in order. And, the series of tubes that makes up the internet here in America and around the world, in order to where you don't have to be worried that the people, that Comcast, because that is basically the only choice I have for internet. I mean, actually, no, I could do AT&T as well, but then that's going to be significantly slower. I did a speed test earlier today because we were talking about, because the other thing that I didn't mention at the top of the show was I got a new computer working. I got the new that my friend gave me, so we might be moving up production wise here. And so we see, like with this here, with on the side, it's, I don't want to have to worry about like right now I get 55 almost 55 megs down and then almost 12 up for my speeds. That's not bad for Comcast, especially with what they're, I think I'm paying for that amount. Like, I don't really think there's like, oh, they're promising up to, blah, 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 or whatnot. AT&T, it's going to be a more consistent, like, I think it would probably be like 8 up, but then it'd be about like, 12 or 14 down, and all that stuff, or something like that, depending on which one ever I got. But it's like, there's other places, like I know up north, it's Spectrum, it's, you go all the way around. And that's the problem I have. That's where I would, if I were president or if I had the power, I would make it to where there's none of these local monopolies. It's you want this company, boom, you get that company. You want to switch from them to, actually bring true competition, not this, well, you're in my territory now, boy, stuff that we got going on.
It's the last mile thing. It's the paying for the last mile so that you get the service that you want, but all the infrastructure is shared. Yep. But the problem is that several companies have a monopoly on this stuff because of past mistakes that the government allowed them to take. When they broke up the phone companies, they allowed them to create this whole new broadband structure and gave them effective duopoly or monopoly, depending on how you look at it. But that's exactly the point, is that if you see a company like Google struggle to get fiber rolled out, maybe they lost interest a little bit because of the net neutrality thing happening, and then maybe they'll gain interest in it again because of it. There's only so many companies that could work with this to get rid of that problem for themselves. Disney's one, Apple's one, Google maybe one, Amazon is probably one, that they could say, okay, well, I can't go and create a whole new broadband infrastructure. I might be able to do this whole new wirelessly thing, or I could buy one of the companies that has part of the monopoly.
Yeah.
And if I buy that company, then I can make the rules as to what I consider net neutrality, because that's legal now, and get all my content to people directly through that. Or if Google buys one and Apple buys one and Disney buys one, if they're not already buying Apple, then they can kind of work out themselves how they would allow people to get content. And maybe they do a better job. Maybe they do a worse job.
Yeah.
It's still a couple of companies that have all the cards. That's funny. Netflix that can kind of decide how it's going to go. And it's unfortunate. The problem is each of these things get bigger and bigger, and you have to worry. You have to worry, because if I really just want you to see my content and no one's stopping me from making that the case, then that's just how it is. It's your local business closing down because Best Buy moved in, or Walmart moved in, or whatever.
Hey, Corey, you want to know what would stop us from making our content?
Not having supporters on Patreon.
We keep doing this. We keep the lights on. And you can do it. You can help us out, help us keep the lights on. You could donate as much as you want, but go to patreon.com/galacticnetcasts. And that's where you can pledge to us. You can pledge as much or as little as you want. And this has honestly got me thinking about doing one myself for, more. But as more money I get, more money goes out, or more product goes out. That's what we want to do. We all want to do this stuff. I would love to do a comic book show. It's just time, because I got to work, and the fact that comic books cost money. So it's like,
and also, I mean, especially on the time thing, Gregor already shows up to this, and I stretch a half-hour show into 5 hours.
Yeah. And there's the fact that I would love to do a wrestling show. And you guys could eventually help us out by supporting us. Get on the ground floor here. Patreon.com/galacticnetcasts.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's GNCASTS.com.